Today I'm catching up with the founder of the Peaceful Streets Project, Antonio Buehler. Antonio has been in the spotlight for quite some time now, for the past couple years, dealing with the Austin Police Department several times, and most recently choosing to sue the Austin Police Department. We're going to get into that now. How are you doing, Antonio?
I'm good. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today. I appreciate you taking the time on your busy schedule. Just go ahead and catch everybody up who isn't up to speed a little bit about the Peaceful Streets Project and yourself.
Yeah, so the Peaceful Streets Project is a grassroots organization that seeks to change culture within society by encouraging people to stand up for their rights, for the rights of one another, and to create communities that will protect and serve each other. And that stemmed out much from what happened to me on New Year's Day 2012 when I saw two policemen abusing a woman who had committed no crime, and when I tried to take pictures, and then when I found out that when she called out for help, then I started yelling at the cops to stop. Then they assaulted me and charged me with a felony crime, and through a lot of good fortune, witnesses stepped forward, including one who took video from across the street, and that allowed people to recognize that the cops were lying, and that allowed people to rally behind me. And so it's been a 2-year struggle now against the Austin Police Department, and the Peaceful Streets Project is doing what it can to help spread awareness and mobilize people to take action.
How has the growth of the Peaceful Streets Project been over the past couple of years?
It's been good. We have people in all parts of the country who are supporters. The challenge with a lot of our support is a lot of it's online, and it's hard to translate sometimes online support into direct action, but we've been very fortunate that a lot of our supporters have engaged in direct action, primarily cop watching, but other forms of direct action as well. And of course we had the 2 national police accountability summits in Austin, Texas, which I think were very valuable to the attendees and to the movement to try to create police accountability.
So it's been 2 years now of growth, chapters springing up at, as I think most of the viewers know, that we helped start the Peaceful Streets Project Houston project out here, and there's all over Texas and all over the country, and I think the world now. Peaceful Streets Project, Cop Block, We Cop Watch, cop accountability is growing, and now you've got to the point where you find yourself in a lawsuit with the Austin Police Department. Break that down for us.
Yeah, so basically we've been waiting for some sort of justice, some sort of resolution to what happened to me on New Year's Day and to what happened to a female victim that was whipped out of the car and thrown on the ground and put in a torture move. And we weren't getting it from the criminal justice system. The police refused to police their own. The district attorney refuses to do anything. No one at the state level wants to get involved. And so December 31st was the last day that we could file a civil suit. So I decided to file a civil suit. Daphne Silverman here in Austin, Texas, ended up being my representation on that. And we're going after them. We are suing the Austin Police Department, the police chief, Art Acevedo, Patrick Aborski, who assaulted me, Robert Snyder, who initially assaulted the woman on New Year's Day, Justin Berry, and Sergeant Adam Johnson, who are 2 other policemen in Austin who have arrested me legally for filming them.
So the lawsuit has now been, put into action. What are the next steps, and what are we expecting to see in 2014 with this lawsuit?
Yeah, I don't know that anything's going to happen in 2014. I expect them to draw it out as much as possible. I'm leaving most legal questions up to my lawyer, Daphne Silverman, but we plan on raising the necessary funds to pay for the depositions and the testimony and all that stuff in order to go after them really hard. I don't think that they usually see people who are willing to sue them in a life or death type of a case where someone was killed or gravely injured. But this was just a case where there's just so much evidence against the police, and it's just so blatant, the cover-up and the criminality of the Austin Police Department and the unwillingness of the district attorney to do anything, that we felt that it was incumbent upon us to take this forward, else they're just going to keep doing it to everyone else. And we just saw what happened with Kelly Thomas, the Kelly Thomas trial, where the 2 cops got away with blatant murder. And we have to change the culture of society. We have to get people to start questioning the police Otherwise, we're never going to see justice. So hopefully this will be a little bit towards that.
So do you see this having, as I know you said you can't answer too many legal questions, but do you see this case, if you to win, having bigger implications for just filming the police in general?
Yes, I think so, and that's the reason we're bringing it forward. There are some clear constitutional issues that are at play here. There's some clear policies and actions of the police that are at play here. So I think that, like a lot of civil rights actions against the public institutions, there is potential for change. But more so than that, I think that this is an opportunity for people to see how corrupt the system is when they get to see the evidence, and they find out that there's 2 videos out there, a half dozen witnesses that all pinpointed the cop and said he was the one who committed the crime. Not a single person in the world is willing to say that I spit on him besides him, and everything that he said has been refuted by the video evidence. And then the following cover-up by the internal affairs and the inaction by the police monitor and the district attorney. I think that this will have the potential to really open a lot of people's eyes. Unfortunately, it takes bad situations for people's eyes to be open a lot of times, such as Rodney King, and maybe Kelly Thomas this time, Oscar Grant. And this is an instance where it wasn't a grave beating, it wasn't close to death, or it wasn't death, but I still think that this case will have the ability to open up people's eyes who typically don't think of the police as problems. They typically think that the cops focus on the degenerates, the scum of society. They don't ever see the police because they tend to live in upper class housing, good neighborhoods. They've not been harassed, based on where they come from or the color of their skin or their socioeconomic condition throughout their life. And I think that a lot of that has to do with who the victim was in this instance, with regards to the woman and me and my background.
Yeah, I think that you make a good point there, and I'm glad that you're willing to get into that admitting that who you are and your background, it is going to have a bigger effect or give you an opportunity to take this further than somebody, maybe an African American who gets harassed every single day and nobody's going to blink an eye when they say, hey, the cops threw me to the ground. But you chose to do something positive with it, so I'm excited to see what this could mean for police accountability and for filming the police. Now, I do want to get into a bit of criticism that has come towards you for taking this action, and it's coming from a very vocal part of what some refer to as the liberty movement, the anarchist, anarcho-capitalist movement, who I guess seem to have an issue with you using, let me paraphrase what somebody said online, using the state to go after the state. And I don't necessarily know if you proclaim to be an anarchist in the first place, but I do know that there have been some interesting things taking place between liberty movement gossipers and attacking you through social networks and through media and stuff like that. How do you feel about that, and do you consider yourself to be a part of this movement?
I know a lot of people are attacking me now, and it doesn't have anything to do with this case. It doesn't have anything to do with me doing a lawsuit. They're not the type of people who typically are going to attack, say, Adam Kokesh because he says he's going to run for president, which is using the state against the state. They haven't come out against Russ Ulbricht of Silk Road, who has sued the state over the Bitcoin issue. So I think it's pretty clear that it's targeted. There's a very clear, vocal minority within the movement who hates the fact that I've been standing up to and calling out bigotry within the movement. And so they're going to attack me in any way that they can. I mean, they're just making up blatant lies. And so I'm not surprised that in this instance they're going to go ahead and use the argument, oh, well, he's using the state, therefore he's a bad person. But, we don't live in a free world. And I believe in using all effective means possible to try to get justice and to bring down corrupt institutions. And with the Peaceful Streets Project, we made a very deliberate decision not to ever use the state. We are not political. We don't support candidates. We don't support legislation. We don't beg the police to treat us well. But in my own personal capacity, I believe that this is an opportunity for us to expose the police, make it a media issue, at least within Austin. It allows us to get access to evidence that we would never get through a criminal trial. And so I'm fine with that. The thing about anarchy is it's great. I love it. I consider myself an anarchist. And just because I am engaged in this lawsuit, that somehow, makes me no longer an anarchist, I think is absurd. If it was my choice, I would live in a society where there was no government and there were no police and there was no courts, and we would deal with things civilly within our communities. But the people who are the quickest to yell at people for trying to get restitution through the state or trying to change laws, because the state exists, are also the people who often pay taxes. They drive on the roads. They're not opposed to getting their Social Security benefits or their veterans' disability benefits. So yeah, they can attack me. I think that me living my life the way that I have been and trying to find alternatives to the state speaks for itself. And again, I think that most of the people who are criticizing me have very specific ulterior motives to that criticism.
Yeah, I totally agree with you 100% that action is going to take precedence over talk every time. And it's, for me personally, I'm not out to I've come across the anarchist label, and I guess I've become more comfortable with it, but I've never seen it as my position or my job to dictate whether or not another person is an anarchist, and if they're living up to some type of code and they qualify as an anarchist. So it's interesting to me when I see that type of behavior. But you also mentioned some of these ulterior motives, which you mentioned bigotry, and I've read some of your posts, and we did an interview a few months back when I was in DC hosting Adam versus the Man, and my co-host was actually Christopher Cantwell. And that was when you first started mentioning that you were becoming more aware of certain issues that concern the left typically, and just making yourself more aware of them. And you mentioned working with Bobby Seale at the second Peaceful Streets Project Summit and some of those things influencing you. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Yeah, so it really started earlier this year, early 2013, actually. And I just had some really good conversations. People have pointed out that they feel that the liberty movement is filled with bigots, with white supremacists, with misogynists, with people who want to get rid of the state in order to maintain their position of power and privilege. And I've always rejected those on their face. And I've always responded, no, you don't understand. Libertarians, we're about individual rights. We don't see color. We don't see gender. We don't see class. And I think that I always won those arguments because I just bullied people. Like I would just, run over people, and I would just hit them with, argument after argument. And people would say, okay, I give up. I throw up their hands and just walk away. But I think I was very fortunate earlier this year. I had a couple people who really pinned me down and really questioned me. And then when I gave them arguments such as, oh, well, women, they don't get economics, then they would question me. Well, what do you mean by that? And how do you know that? And what's the basis for that? I was like, oh, well, men are more logical, women are more emotional. Oh, really? Is there any evidence to prove that? And with these people, I just couldn't bulldoze them over because they were very intelligent people, and in their heart of hearts, they were anarchists too. They would consider themselves libertarian, but they didn't want to take on the libertarian moniker because they felt that it was tainted. And the more I looked into it, and the more I evaluated my own positions and biases and prejudices, I realized that in a lot of ways I was racist, and I was sexist, and I was classist. And I decided that I could do one of two things. I could double down, and I could refuse to address those issues, or I could try to improve myself as a person. And I chose the latter. I decided that I would improve myself as a person. And the thing about the liberty movement, or the libertarians, or ANCAPs, or voluntarists, whatever you want to say, is that whenever the people who believe in using the state as solutions attack these groups, and they usually get pushback when they ask, well, who's going to do this? Who's going to do that? What are you going to do about the racists in society? What are you going to do about the rapists, the pedophiles? And what the response usually is that, it requires moral beings in order to have a free society. And in such a society, we would engage in ostracism and social pressure, and we would expel people who break basic moral and ethical boundaries. And so I believe that just like the people who opened my eyes to my own actions and inactions, that if I opened the eyes of other people to what they were saying and doing, that they would recognize the contradictions between what they say they would do in a free society and what they are currently engaged in. And so I did that mostly behind the scenes. I talked to people like John Bush and Danny Panzella, just talking about ways that we could better ourselves and better the community. And both of those two, I got to give them credit. Both of them acknowledged their shortcomings just like I acknowledged mine, and they said, you know what, I think I can do better, and they started talking to other people. And I honestly felt that we could make the community aware of this not inherent, but this deeply embedded bigotry that's within the movement. Not that everyone's a bigot, but it is within the movement, and the fact that so few people are willing to call it out. What I was shocked by was how vicious people would get when I would talk in an abstract general level about these issues, not even targeting anyone, just pointing out that, like, hey, maybe we shouldn't use these words. And it just kept escalating and getting more and more personal when I would bring up these issues, and I had a lot of people who previously supported me come out and really attack me. And then, it just sort of hit a crescendo when when someone pointed me to Cantwell's wall and he made a joke about raping, and I just made a comment, and he told me to, he said, called me something like a whiny bitch or something like that, and then I asked him why he used that word. And then it just sort of became an all-out war where everyone just figured that the best way they could deal with someone who was trying to point out bigotry was to either engage in the most offensive bigotry possible, or perhaps they were doing it in jest and they were trying to show how harmless those words were or whatever. But I was shocked that the literally hundreds of people who started attacking me, all because I had the audacity to say, you know what, maybe we shouldn't talk like sexist, maybe we shouldn't talk like racist, and maybe we shouldn't joke about raping little girls. And over the past 6 months, I mean, that sort of all came to a head in September, and it's been relentless ever since. And I don't think I've ever personally just gone out and attacked someone and said, you're a crappy person, you're a bigot, without any evidence. It's always been based on what people have said or done. But what I've noticed is that a lot of people have been relentless in attacking me, making up false memes, saying stuff like I'm a former communist, I'm a longtime Democrat, I grew up rich and I'm on a trust fund, or someone just said I was married the other day and I married a rich woman. That's news to me. Just stuff like that, making up completely bogus memes. And the thing about it is, I know that the bigotry within the movement, I mean, it is there. There's no question about it. I see it. It's blatant. But I don't believe that everyone in the movement is a bigot, nor do I believe that most people in the movement are bigots. But what disturbs me and makes me take pause is the fact that people see it, and people see that people are engaging in extremely antisocial, degenerate behavior. And instead of calling out that behavior, they prefer to ignore it and try to act like it's not happening. Or worse is they choose to attack me for actually pointing out the issue and then attacking me. And so it does make me question what the value is of the movement when so many within the movement are unwilling to live up to the standards that they say they would adhere to in a free society.
Yeah, that's very well said, Antonio. And the memes, it's been crazy. I've kind of just, I kind of stay on the periphery of everything. I've experienced some of the same stuff you're talking about, and been to a number of Liberty events and spoke at Anarchy in NYC and New York. And for a while, since New York, for me, I've just been noticing different things. I tend to see things and try not to be judgmental of other people, but just to see ways, okay, I want to make sure not to represent myself in that way and things like that. And I saw a lot of ego-based activity and just, I guess, what some would refer to as patriarchy. And I think some of it is, as you said, it's not outright bigotry where people are mean-spirited, but just casually making comments without taking into account the other people that may be affected, or who, you know, it's not about limiting and having to censor yourself. It's really about, as far as I feel, and it's not about like the movement having to censor yourself for some bigger cause, some collective thing, because I know everybody's afraid of collectivism. There's a big fear of that, and I understand it. It's about just making a conscious choice on your own as an individual to say that if I truly believe in freedom and if I want to create the society that I'm working towards, then why not change my actions and work my actions in a way that's going to benefit more people and then bring more people into the fold, instead of turning people away from an idea that I believe could change the world. You know, and if people have too much ego where they can't pause to think about that and see which ways they could work together instead of using unnecessary language that's just going to divide further, then I'm not really sure they're in it for anything other than themselves. And as you said, you really don't have to call anybody out individually. They usually show themselves, and they seem to think it's just a big joke. Meanwhile, others who possibly may have worked together with us on a police action or on a community action are now turned away, and we take a couple steps backwards. And so it is an important issue. And you've been attacked now going on 6 months, as you said. So do you feel that your particular focus of action, which tends to be police accountability and just in general your activism, do you feel like there's a place for it anymore in the liberty movement, or is there a place for the liberty movement in your life, I guess?
Well, I'm constantly evaluating where I am at life. I think that a lot of my efforts are going to be focused this year on police abuse and on education. And the degree to which I'm willing to interact with others in the community, I think, has a lot to do with with their behaviors and their associations. For example, not that I don't really want to call out Cantwell much, because anyone who's paid attention knows the type of character he is. But we have a lot of mutual friends. Unfortunately, he blocked me, so it's a lot harder to know which ones are our mutual friends on Facebook. But he dedicates 25% of his life now to attacking me. As a good anarchist should, attack another anarchist. But he spends 25% of his life, it seems, attacking me. And all of those people who know me and know him and are friends with both of us, they can't miss it. Especially if they're liking his other posts and stuff. And so, they see what he's doing. They see what he's saying. They see the lies. They see the slander. They see the offensive bigotry, and not just him, but probably 100 other people as well. A lot of people who I used to consider friends, and so I do question, why would you want to be friends with someone like that? If you know that they're attacking your friend, or why would you want to associate with someone like that who they know is attacking someone that they know is actually trying to find ways to push liberty forward? And so I have come to terms with, over the past several months, that there's a lot of relationships that I have within the liberty movement which are very, very shallow, and people supported me early on just because I was willing to stick my finger in the eye of the government, and they support him for the same reason. And at the end of the day, if they just want people who are willing to stick their finger in the eye of the government, whether it's actually by doing direct action like we do, or whether it's by making hysterical ranting YouTube videos like he does, then they can do that. But I am like slowly disassociating from people who don't seem to live the values that they claim to value.
I think that's a great thing. You gotta live consistently. We can't just talk about these principles online or read books about them. We gotta live them if we want to create them, and it's important to to voluntarily associate with those who represent the lifestyle and the morals and values that you want to raise your family, your friends, and yourself around. So I think that's a wise call. I look forward to more Peaceful Streets action throughout the year. Anything else you want to leave us with?
No, I just encourage people to get involved. My two focuses this year are to continue the growth of the police accountability movement through Peaceful Streets and through our allies, and to grow the alternative education movement, to encourage people to seek out homeschooling, homeschool co-ops, unschooling, alternative education, just pull their kids out of the traditional schools that crush their creativity and their love of learning, so we can all live a freer and more prosperous life. And if they want to follow what we're doing with the police abuse side of things, they can go to peacefulstreets.com or Free Antonio Buehler on Facebook. They can also, if they choose to, donate to help pay for some of the legal fees in the suit against the Austin Police Department. And if they want to follow what I'm doing on education, they can follow me on Buehler Education on Facebook as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Antonio.
Thank you.
That was Antonio Buehler of the Peaceful Streets Project. For the Conscious Resistance, this is Derrick Bros. Thank you.